Whether you're leading for the first time, leading through change, or learning to lead all over again, this space is for you. No fluff, no gimmicks, just real talk from those who've led through challenges, adapted under pressure, and thrived in the face of change. Welcome to Command to Corporate, where leadership isn't just taught, it's lived. Let's get to work. Everyone. Hopefully, you've been enjoying our content thus far. Really glad that you can join us. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to definitely like and subscribe. We're on to episode 3, which is leadership in the military. And so, in our previous episode, we started to touch on that a little bit and kind of move a little bit in that space. But now we're going to kind of dive into that journey that both of us shared. And so, I think kicking it off, what led you to join the Army, T?
Hey Larry, good to come back here and talk to you. I appreciate it. Um, right off the bat, why did I
Off
join
the
the
bat.
army? You know, it's. I wish I could say there's a sexy answer behind it, but it's kind of not really. So I was in high school. Mom couldn't really afford to send me to college, and I probably honestly was not ready for college either. And so I was probably a little rebellious and ignorant and naive. And so I was like, well, let me try this army thing. So I had friends that were going into army, and I was like, let me give it a shot. So I guess I joined because didn't really want to go to college. But I really kind of wanted to have some sort of trade, some sort of skill.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm gonna join the army, learn a skill, and then get out and just work. And which probably the number one reason where I chose satellite communications at that time. It was at 31
Mm,
Sierra. So I was like, that sounds like a very promising job.
yeah.
It sounded fancy, which the army has a knack for making like mundane things sound very fancy. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I guess a trade, I guess, is the biggest reason. What
Yeah.
about you?
So for me, I think it's very similar to you. Like I
Mhm.
felt like I wasn't ready to go to college,
Yeah.
and just my mindset, I think I was more into, I would have looked at it as a party place and
Uh,
having fun.
okay.
And also, I did not want my mother to pay. So she had already paid for me to go to a private junior high school,
Mhm.
somewhat of a private Catholic high school. And
Yeah.
so I said, I don't want her to pay anymore, even though I could have gotten aid or whatever. I'm like, I don't want you to even try to do that. Plus, I had a little sister. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to sign up and join the army. And because for one thing, I wasn't going to do was stay at home and stay around the area.
Yeah.
And so I joined up, and my mother was actually trying to help me pick an MOS. And my first thought was just like you, well, why don't I do mechanic?
Oh,
I had already started tinkering with cars and stuff, doing minor things. And I'm like, I can easily get a job with that, getting out of the military. So why not do that? She's like, no, no, no. There's too many mechanics. So I signed up to be at the time, 45 Golf, which is fire control systems repair.
okay.
And so when I used to say that to people, they'd be like, "Oh, we can always use more firemen." And I'm like,
Not gonna lie, that's the first thing came to mind.
I'm not, I'm not a fireman. Though that would have been okay too, but I was like, no, it's I work on the electrical systems that
Yeah.
fire the tanks and fire the Bradleys and fire the Paladins, and so that was the stuff I did. So that's why I joined. It's like, I remember when I showed up in basic training, and they would just say, "Hey, soldier, why are you here?"
Yeah.
No reason, drill sergeant. No,
Oh,
no real,
really?
no real reason. Like I didn't. There was nothing. I couldn't say it was for any definitive thing. I would just say no reason, drill sergeant. I just signed up,
That's
and I only
impressive.
know of one person when I was like before I signed up. she went to the National Guard and came
Mm,
back, and
yeah.
I only know of one. And I didn't go to. I think we just worked in the same place. But she was the
Okay.
only person I knew, kind of sharing her experience. But I didn't at the time of like younger people around me. I didn't
Mhm.
know anyone else that had left and joined the military.
Interesting. Yeah. That's such a dangerous response to a drill sergeant question. Like he's setting you up for something, say the
Yeah.
thing, and it's like, oh,
Oh, you know it. You know it. You can't. I remember when in basic training, them saying stuff like, "Who wants to go home?" It's like,
oh.
don't raise your hand. Don't raise your hand. It's a setup. It's a setup. Don't do it.
Who? Oh, even better. Who wants to watch TV? Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember
Oh,
that. They never asked that question.
so they ask who wants to watch TV, and everybody's like, sure, why not? And they're like, okay, get on all fours, get in like in a push-up position, right? And then put your elbows down on the ground
Oh,
and hold your head up. So you're in a
oh,
modified push-up position and you're watching TV. And so,
oh
yeah.
my gosh.
And that's what I mean. It's very dangerous.
Yeah.
So,
But when I think about basic training, I mean it's scary because I remember showing up and thinking to myself, because I went to did basic at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
yeah.
I remember showing up and thinking when I got off that bus, what the heck did I just do?
Oh, yeah.
Why did I do this?
Yeah.
And I sit there and they had us sit on our duffel bags, but facing away from the direction the drill sergeants were walking.
Mm.
So then I start seeing people in front of me start doing this number, like looking back because they can hear stuff. And then it comes to me and I'm like, it's like a scary movie. It's foggy and you just looking back like, what the heck are they looking at? And then you see just a wave of drill sergeants coming and they're just all stand up, smiling. Come on, show us your ID tag. Stand up, stand up. Okay, come on with us. Grab your gear. So we're throwing these duffel bags and they're freaking speed walking. And we're just like, people are falling, trying to keep up. And then as soon as we get to the barracks, it's nothing but yelling.
Oh,
You
yeah.
trying to listen for your name, and they're just yelling it out to tell you which platoon to go to, and it was just crazy. It was a
Oh.
crazy experience. How was it for you showing up?
Um, no, I think it was just as crazy, honestly. And it doesn't help that it was in the middle of the summer, Fort Jackson, and it's so hot
Fort
and
Jackson.
humid, and you're sweating. And then we finally got into after, I don't know, like it felt like an hour of yelling, we finally got into the barracks, and we had bays at the time. So I
Yeah,
don't
we
know.
did too. Yeah, we
Oh, you did?
still
Okay.
had days. Yeah, yeah.
So a bay, for those that don't know, is essentially one huge open space with like, I don't know, 50 beds or maybe more. Like, I don't know.
All bunk beds at that
All
for
bunk
us.
beds.
All
Yeah.
bunk beds. Yeah.
Yes. Because I'm hearing these days it's a lot more big rooms, I guess.
Mm,
That's what I'm hearing. I'm not sure if the bay's still a thing. And
okay.
so they give you a canteen and they say, you have, I don't know, like 30 seconds to go fill it up with water, right? And so nobody knows what's going on. And so like the bathroom's that way. So we all run to the bathroom and we hear like 30, 29. We're like, hurry up, fill up with water. And when you stress people out, people do things that they wouldn't ordinarily do. And what I mean by that is I've seen people fill their canteen up from the urinal
Oh,
and the toilet because
oh,
all the sinks were being used, and the drill sergeant just yelling in the background. Um, but I guess maybe that's the first experience of like you know of how sometimes followers just follow out of fear, you know,
true. Yeah, yeah.
and out of fear they may do things they don't normally do. And that's a lesson that I learned, and then I forgot and made a mistake. you know. But and we'll get into that later. But
Yeah.
yeah, so that was my experience. I couldn't believe it. I saw people filling up their canteen from urinals and toilets, and then
Wow.
what did you know? You go back out, you line up in front of your bunk, and then you had to drink it.
Yeah. Now I remember the days of them telling us, like, especially when you went out there and did like a field exercise, and they want you to, and all in all, it's just to stay hydrated
Yeah.
and to make sure you stay
Mhm.
hydrated. And they want you to down your canteen in a
Yep.
certain amount of time, meaning they want to make sure you're hydrated. And then when you're done, you got to hold that thing up above your
Oh
head,
yeah.
over your Kevlar, and
Yes.
make sure that nothing comes out. And if anything comes out, they might make you fill that joker up and down it again until you're vomiting water. So it's like, drink
Yeah.
the water.
Yeah. We definitely did that too. Actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So, question then.
Yeah.
So, I know, how did basic training challenge you? You already talked about,
Mm.
I mean, a combination of mental and physical, but how did it challenge you mentally and physically? And I think I can start out with the physical part is I was out of shape.
Mm.
So coming into basic training, I think I had to take 4 PT tests
Oh
before I
really?
passed the run, and yeah, I was out of shape. And I started before I left home, I started trying to run and get into that, but nothing prepared me for basic training. And I always think that when I see the people that were coming into basic training physically fit, they had it easy. It's like you're coasting through doing push-ups, pull-ups. It's like cake, and
Yeah.
I'm up in here huffing and puffing like Private Pile out there. And so,
Yeah.
so I always say physically it challenged me a lot. I remember taking like my third to the before I finally passed, and I'm running around, and every time I passed my drill sergeant, I happened to be walking,
Ah.
and he finally said, Perry, hurry up, get up. You better be running when you pass me. And the first time I passed, I said, I got it, Drill Sergeant. Kept going. Next time, I got it, Drill Sergeant.
Are you still walking at that
Yeah,
time?
I'm running, but then as I passed him, I would be walking. So he's thinking I'm walking. Though I know I'm like I'm running, but I'm just
Uh,
happen to pass him
yeah.
walking. And then the last time he said, "Pick it up, Perry," I'm just like I gotta yell. I said, "I got it, Drill Sergeant." And so I had shaved like, I mean, and each time I'm drastically shaving off minutes off of my time.
Yeah.
And
Each
so
time
then
you
when
take
I,
a PT test.
yeah, every time I took a PT test,
Yeah.
physical fitness test for those that don't know. And
Yeah.
so then when it was all said and done, I was in the drill sergeant's office getting chewed the hell out for yelling at him. And at the end of the day, but I was still somewhat defiant. I'm like, but I improved, right? Do you see my time? Look at it there on the, I don't give a, and all of that stuff. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
yeah, mentally, I don't think it was. I mean, I knew that they were there to do a job,
Yeah.
so it's like I didn't expect it to be like. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't think it was like TV. I didn't know what to expect, but I think the physical part for me was the toughest to overcome. How about you?
That's interesting. So yeah, I was that person.
Ah,
Um,
that person that I hated. Like, look at
yeah.
that guy running like it's nothing.
Yeah. So actually, like in high school, for 3 years, the last 3 years of high school, it was just soccer, wrestling, and track and field. And so eventually, I became like a pretty good runner. So I was running probably sub 6 minute miles, and so
Mm,
running was an issue.
dang! Wow!
And then push-ups, that's just part of life. I feel like in like wrestling especially. So you do push-ups and just calisthenics or something like that. So push-ups, I think I went in like I was able to do like almost 100. I don't know, maybe like 90 something.
Wow!
And so yeah, the physical fitness part was not an issue at all. But Joshan did try to mess with me on the first one. So I was doing push-ups, and this guy would not count my push-ups.
Oh,
And yeah, and it was
so he
just
tried to
like,
break you mentally.
yes, he definitely, and it worked because
Oh,
I
wow!
was so pissed. I was like, there's no way, like I could do 100, push-ups. I was like, it's impossible. Like, so
Yeah,
I was angry.
yeah.
And so I passed everything else. It's just the push-ups. I actually failed that first one.
And people don't know, for those that don't know, when you're doing push-ups, and basically when you come down, your shoulder blades, your elbows has to break a plane. So basically, it has to be flat across from elbow to
Mhm.
elbow.
Yeah.
And when you have someone go one, one,
Yeah.
two, two, three, three, and you hit 10, and then they say go to your knees, right there, you're done.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna shock the heck out of your muscles, but mentally, it's just gonna be, and now you just feel like you're lifting, like you're trying to push the earth away from you. It's
Yeah.
just, it's crazy.
It is. And so yeah, I was pissed. I feel that. But after everything's said and done, by the end, I was like, maxing out my PT test. So it was no big deal.
Dang.
I
Yeah.
know.
I
Um,
never hit the days of vaccine PT test. Never ever did. I wasn't that guy.
I was, yeah, that was the easy part, man. So like that
Ugh,
that was no issue. Mentally, you know, I think the biggest challenge was just learning all this new vocabulary, acronyms, map reading, and just like it's a whole new world. I mean, it's like as a
yeah,
civilian, you're learning a new language essentially, and
yeah,
you're doing things that you've never done before, like fire a weapon. I've never fired a weapon.
yeah. Same
And
here.
so, yeah, exactly. And it's like, and it's not like you're firing a weapon in the air conditioned indoor range, you're out
Oh,
there
yeah.
and it's already like 90 something degrees and maybe 80% humidity.
Yep.
And you got your,
Your gear on,
yeah,
Kevlar on, all the
sweat
pain.
going in your
Yep.
eyeballs and trying to like look what's going on. Yeah. So I think, so that was the challenging part. But fortunately, I think wrestling, especially in high school for 3 years, was what made me like physically and mentally tough. But it was still learning the new skills and language essentially. That was the most challenging part.
Yeah. And when you say at the range, firing a weapon, I remember first time I went, I was firing pretty good.
Mm.
And the drill sergeants, like they may know the capital of the state you're from. And I remember I did pretty well, and they're like, "Wow, you must be a gangbanger." I'm like, I'm looking at them like, "What are you talking about?"
Oh
And I'm
no!
like, they just say the craziest things. But I have to say, and I'm looking at, you know, did you have a drill sergeant or instructor who influenced your view on leadership? Now, I wouldn't say that they necessarily influence like the drill sergeants because I didn't have any
Mm.
instructors with the drill sergeants, but I did love the drill sergeants. I mean, even though they would go off and be going crazy, and most of them were either had Ranger tabs. I had one Delta Force drill sergeant, not mine, but he was a Delta Force drill sergeant.
Okay.
Used no profanity at all either, which was crazy for to be in basic training. But I just love their look. I love the drill sergeant hats, and even in basic, one of the drill sergeants left his cover on one of the bunks to do something. And I was like, I picked it up and I put it on. I said, somebody take a picture of me real quick. That picture is history. I don't know where it went, don't know who took it, but I was like, man, I wish I could have had that picture to just say, I had it. But I did. I just love the drill sergeants. I just like their whole look, their everything they were about, even though they were freaking crazy. I remember the last day graduation, my mother shows up
Mm.
and I see this drill sergeant, and I said, "Hey, drill sergeant, you mind if I go take a walk with my mother?" He was like, "She there, ain't she?"
Oh,
I
okay.
was like,
Man,
"All right, damn." You didn't have to be so rude in front of my
I
mother. Like,
know.
you go play the part to the last minute. Like.
That's true, but they're like once you meet these Dershans, later on in your career, and then you realize it's just like really normal people.
Oh yeah,
But at that time, man, it's they're on a pedestal. Whether it's a good pedestal or bad pedestal, or that they could be a great Dershan or some they could think like this guy is the biggest jerk in the world.
yeah,
So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Hmm. So
yeah.
by the way, I still have my drill sergeant hat.
Oh, you were a drill sergeant.
No, I mean like no, I mean the picture with the drill sergeant hat on.
Oh, dang! I
Yeah, so I
wish.
took that, but I also like took one of those. I had this. I took off my BDU top at that time's BDU battle dress
Yeah,
uniform,
yeah, yep,
and I
same.
rolled up my sleeves. Show off the guns. Had my M16. Oh, so yeah, I definitely have a couple of those pictures. But
Yeah,
drill sergeants, I guess I really don't have anything to complain about. I think all my drill sergeants were pretty decent.
yeah,
Um, but honestly, the biggest thing that I took away from drill sergeants is, they always scream, help your buddy, help each other out, and that is, I realize like that's the most important thing,
yeah,
it's all about, there's a reason why the army says, make sure you're with your battle buddy, or when you
yeah,
go somewhere dangerous, take a battle buddy,
yeah, yeah,
and yeah, that was the first experience where, a drill sergeant telling me, hey, make sure you help them out. Their
yeah,
success is your success, and not, in different words, but
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what they're saying.
yeah,
And when they were saying, like, for example, get in front of your bunks in like 5, 4, 3, when they do these countdowns,
yeah, yeah,
um, and then if obviously nobody ever makes it, and so you all get dropped to do push-ups and
yeah, yeah,
whatever, and then you slowly learn, like, oh, let me help myself by helping others, essentially.
yeah,
So that's kind
yeah,
of indirectly teaching us, you need to help each other out, to accomplish the mission. And those are the small nuggets of leadership that try to train you and instill in you in basic training.
yeah,
But you never really think about it that way. You just think it's
no,
harassment.
yeah,
But yeah, so it's really, really important. I think that is the most important thing I've learned in, being a leader, is helping others, and I guess that's what we do, is service to others and to the nation.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that was a pretty cool lesson I took away that sticks with me, now, and I'm sure it will be for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I do remember, like, you couldn't be anywhere by yourself. You
Mm.
always had to have your battle buddy with you,
Hmm.
because if you were by yourself, they would say, "Where's your battle buddies?" Even if they went into the latrine, bathrooms
Yeah.
for those that don't know, it's like you had to be standing there waiting on them. Like, you can't be anywhere without your battle buddy unless
Yeah.
you're going to the shower or something. Other than that, you should have your battle buddy. And I remember one instance of, I guess you could say, leadership for me in basic training. I remember when we went in there, when we were doing like our, I guess, tactical evaluations to see how you would do under a stressful environment. And so they had some weapon, I think it was probably either a 249 or M60, of course, firing blanks down a hill. And the idea was we shoot, move, communicate up the hill and take the position. And so it was my turn to lead the squad, of about 5 to 7 people up this hill using that. And that's what they were evaluating. And so what I did is they were firing, and I went to and didn't know anything about it, didn't know what to do, besides that. And I told 3 people, I said, "Hey, we're going to fire from down here. I want you to go around and come in behind that position. And we're just going to shoot from right here. We're not going to move." And so
So
then,
you actually, well, I mean, you did a flanking maneuver.
yes, yes, without even knowing it, what to
That's
do.
impressive.
Yeah, and I sent them around, and then when the shooting stopped, and I saw my guys were behind the point, and the whoever that was could, the person that was supporting the drill sergeant stopped and looked back, and then we just walked up the hill. And the drill sergeant was like, "That's not what you were supposed to do, but you gotta go, move on." So they passed me for it.
Yeah, I mean that's really advanced tactics,
Yeah, and I had no,
because
I don't know if it was maybe from a movie, watching
yeah,
movies where I thought to do that, but I'm like, why are we gonna risk, if it was a real life situation where we have the disadvantage of going up a hill, flank them. So we just went around.
that's impressive. Yeah, yeah. No, I would have died on that hill.
But I
Yeah.
remember that, even I think when we went out to the field and it was like platoon against two platoons,
Yeah.
and And I remember going through, and basically we just had to hold our position while they advanced, and in hopes of surviving. And we had the miles gear, and with people, if they don't know
Mm,
what the miles gear is, basically you connect it onto your Kevlar, all into your, it's like laser tag that the military has. And so when you fire, it beeps, and it's going to beep until a drill sergeant comes and puts a key in and cuts it off. And I remember, and even though it's you're not you're firing blanks, there's still a little bit of debris that could come out. And so you want to, they always tell you to still maintain a safe distance. And when we were doing that, I remember that same thing. And as a solo person, I went, I went around and I flanked those platoons, and some of them were not advancing. They were just sitting waiting. And I would just come up and I would just tap them on the shoulder and say, I got you, you're dead. Have a seat. Take off your Kevlar. And I just went through behind, wiping out the majority of the ones that had not even moved because they weren't watching their rears. They were
yeah.
just sitting there. So I'm like, no, that's not how you play this game.
All right. Nice. And
But
then you
go
went
ahead.
on to your MOS was what? It sounds like
So
you
I
were
did.
non-MOS.
Yeah, and even though I did a fire control repair, 45 golf is what I went in as. I did love the war games and that tactics a lot. So whenever we went to the field, I had to do that. I think that's where I really loved doing it. Though
Mm.
I had no desire to be, infantry and go down that route and be a foot soldier. Um, but I did enjoy it. Do enjoy it a lot. I really, I think, just being creative with it, you know, uh, using that strategy and the tactical elements and trying to just win and survive, and really did enjoy that.
I mean, it's good that you had drill sergeants that like allowed you to do that and not like just punish you for it, for not following the exercise. And I
Yeah,
think you know that's an important lesson as well. That like a lot of times, you may have a boss these days, where it's like you try to do something out of the ordinary, something innovative or new, and sometimes you get smacked, back in line. It's like, hey, why are you doing that?
hmm,
So sometimes, like now, I feel like you get punished for trying to think outside the box sometimes.
true,
Um,
very true.
and I guess like you gotta have like that drill sergeant that says, that's not what you're supposed to do, but you did a good job. Now you're passed.
Yeah,
Like you gotta have, that's a pretty cool leader. Like hey,
yeah,
that's not what you're supposed to do, but you got the job accomplished. You thought outside the box and
yeah,
made it
yeah,
happen. And I feel like that's a big leadership skill that a lot of people don't have these days.
yeah, yeah. That's
But
true.
that's interesting. Okay.
And I think coming out of, for us that have gone through basic training, I mean, the whole objective is, that mental preparedness. I mean,
Hmm.
you do have the physical aspect getting you in shape because, you will be tested physically,
Yeah.
and depending on where you're going, you have to stay, what they'll say is combat ready. And that
Yeah.
means maintaining a certain level of physical fitness, but also mentally prepared. Because I think what the military standard is at that time for the Army, you only needed like 4 hours of sleep. And you're supposed to just keep on going. And if you talk to people nowadays, and some people can't sleep, and they're getting that anyway and still able to do it. But for people that are used to getting that 7, 8 hours, you tell them all I'm going to do is give you 4 hours for the next 30 days. You still need to get out there and perform. It's going to be rough for them.
That's interesting. The more we talk about it, the more I see so much benefit of basic training and
Oh yeah, yeah,
about just like leadership in general. And
yes,
so basic training, I guess the old saying is we're going to tear you down to build you right back up.
yeah, yeah,
And I think what I usually get out of that, and what I think I got out of it, is just that you learn your new limits.
yes,
You think you're on level 10, but you're on level 2,
yeah,
because
yeah,
you've never been pushed, because the army's going to push you, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so what used to be a level 10 for you now may be a 5 because you
Mhm.
realize it. things could be a lot worse, or you realize that I was a lot more stressed. So there's always new limits, and I think that's the appeal to having veterans work in just non-military jobs. I think those are the kind of some of the skills that you bring to the table. It's like you face challenges with more open arms. You're probably a little bit more resilient because you kind of know your tolerances. Where
Hmm.
others may get stressed out. After an hour, for you, it's not a big factor. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
like I've been deployed for 15 months.
Yeah.
I don't care. You want me to do this job for a month, 2 months? I got it too
Oh
easy.
yeah. Yeah. And you get put on all kind of special duties, and people
Yeah.
might say, I could never imagine, I couldn't do that. And some you even volunteer for. And I'll get into a couple of them that I volunteer for when we start talking about like duty station and things. But you know, sometimes you got to think, if I do this, what am I going to get out of it? People look at it as maybe not the most gratifying, rewarding, whatever, just pull on crap, additional duty,
Mhm.
but something can come out of it. And what is that something? And
Yeah.
thinking it through before it's just like, nope, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, the short story of it is, basic training really push your tolerances and got you those new levels. And that's something that, I took away from it. But I also, I kind of use that as, in mentoring other leaders, I guess, even now, you kind of want to slowly push your other leaders that work, for you or with you, to get them to that new uncomfortable position, so that way they know how far they could really be
Yeah.
pushed,
Yeah.
and that's kind of a way of making people more resilient,
Yeah.
and I
And they
think,
always say the growth comes when you're out of that comfort zone.
yeah.
And you got to be willing to take that leap every single time if you
Mhm.
want to keep moving, and build up, just build up even more.
Yeah. Wow. Reflecting back on basic, it was it was a lot more complex than I thought.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot more that we learned and took away from, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And so where did you go to AIT? So at AIT, once you go to basic training, AIT is your advanced individual training. So that's what you actually learn your job. So where did you end up going to AIT?
So I was 31 Sierra, which is
Mm.
satellite communications, and so I went to Fort Gordon
Oh,
in Georgia.
Georgia?
Yeah,
Ah,
so home of the signal.
okay.
Signal. Yeah,
Okay.
so that was
Signal
my
Corps.
first. Yeah, I spent like almost a year there, actually.
Really? I
Yeah,
thought
but
I had
AIT was like about 10 months or something like that.
I thought I had a long one. My AIT was in Aberdeen Proving Ground, so
Mm.
Ordnance Corps. And I thought 6 months was long, and you're talking about 10 months. So that's pretty awesome. And the only reason I mentioned AIT, because for the most part, we're just, it's definitely a step down from basic training in the sense that
Hmm.
there are drill sergeants there, but now you
Hmm.
have instructors.
Yeah,
So now the instructors are in the classes, teaching you the different elements of your MOS,
yeah.
your military occupational specialty, and teaching that. And so it's just really a lot more laid back. You have freedom. You can go out on the weekends if you don't have any kind of duties. So
Hmm.
it's really good. And I remember when I was going through AIT, there was a sergeant there that was reclassing. So reclass is when you decide, like maybe they phased out the previous MOS, and you have to reclass and change jobs, or you might have to exit the military. He was reclassing, and when I met him there, great NCO. I think I was maybe a PV2, private two. He was a sergeant reclassing. And when I arrived at my first duty station, I was thinking, my goodness, I was in the orderly room. So it's like a reception area. And I look up on the board and I see the names of the squad that I'm going to because I recognize my MOS. And I see his name, last name. I think, I wonder if that's him. And then he walks through the door to pick me up. And I was like, yes, yes, somebody I know. But for me, when I joined the military, I actually joined the National Guard first. And
Oh, okay.
so when I finished AIT, I went back home to Jersey and
Mm.
served in a guard unit for 6 months. And so when during my class in AIT, they all went to Germany. And I thought, dang, I want to go to Germany. I'm going to sign up for active. And so when I went back, I signed up, but they say, well, because you signed up National Guard, you have to do a minimum commitment of 6 months. Then you can go. And
6 months in the guard.
in the guard before you can switch over to active. So I
Mm.
had already signed the papers. I'm like, okay, hopefully I end up in Germany. And then they said, okay, you have two choices: go to Fort Hood, Texas, which is now Fort Cavazos, or Korea. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to go to either one. But I damn sure don't want to go to Korea. So I was like, I guess I'm going to Fort Hood. And so then that's how
So
I ended up Fort Hood. But so then from the time I graduated AIT, 6 months, he was there and he received me uh, at my first duty station.
really? So
Yeah,
Fort Hood was your first duty station?
yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
so
for
you
sure.
dove in with 2 feet. Like
Yeah.
that's an experience.
It was coming from Jersey, New York area, spending a lot of time going back and forth. When I got down to the area in which Fort Hood is located, I thought I'd travel back in time. I was like, this is such so much of a slow pace, what I wasn't used to.
Wait, what was small, slow pace?
Fort Hood, Killeen,
Fort Hood.
Texas. Yeah, I thought it was just like I could not. I was just like, this is. I felt like I really like I had traveled back in time.
Wow.
It
Okay.
just it just had that vibe to me. But fast forward all these years, guess who's still in Texas?
Yeah.
Me, because I was like, I'm not going back. So where was your first duty station?
Well, first of all, I think we had very different experiences in Fort Hood.
Really?
Very, very different. Oh yeah, like
When when
you
when,
went to
when
Fort
did
Hood.
when did you first go to Fort Hood?
Oh, I don't even remember. I think I don't even remember. I think I was an officer at that time, and I'd have to think about what year. But yeah, I forget what year. But my experience was like rucking. So you're like we're rucking just about like 6 miles per month, and then like every quarter we're doing 12-mile ruck marches, and then these 4 mile
No.
runs. And no, you didn't do any of that.
So 4 mile runs, yes, we always did 4 mile. I don't think we ever did anything less than 4 mile runs when it came to formations. That's always between, company runs. It's not going to be anything less than 4 miles. There's no such thing as a 2 mile run when you're on a day to day basis. That's not happening. So it's
You did.
always going to be four
Oh,
miles. Ruck marches, not so much because, well, maybe I missed it because I spent a lot of time in the field. So
ah,
because of my MOS, I
yeah,
probably spent outside of infantry and armor.
yeah,
Um, I mean, if they win, I win. And
yeah.
so most of my experience would be armor's in the field, I'm in the field. Then the next month, Bradley in the field, I'm in the field, or infantry.
Gotcha.
Armor, infantry, armor. So as long as they kept rotating, I spent a lot of time out there in the field
Fair.
all the time.
Okay, so yeah, I did. Luckily, I did not have that problem going out to the field. But I think I seriously think like I've lost a few inches on my height, and that's why I'm so short now because of all these ruck marches and then like Kevlars and then you gear. Oh my god, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's a
So
whole nother story.
where was your first duty station?
My first duty station was not any better. It was at Fort Bragg.
Oh, Fort Bragg is where?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I
North
guess.
Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So yeah, so that was my first duty station. Where was I? Actually, I got diverted to Fort Bragg. I think my first set of orders had me going to is it Fort Detrick maybe or Fort Meade
Fort
in
Meade, I know is
Maryland?
Virginia, right?
Um,
It's Fort Meade, Virginia?
Somewhere around that area,
Okay.
the DMV area, basically.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I went there and like
Oh,
next
Fort
thing,
Meade, like not in the States?
No, it isn't. Yeah, no, it's in
Oh,
the state.
oh, okay, okay, okay. Hmm.
So yeah, it's that Virginia area.
Oh,
I
okay,
forget now. It's
gotcha.
been like, that was, oh, wow, that was like 1997. A while ago.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I already did a brain dump on that. But yeah, so I get to the unit, and then they're like, "Oh, you're supposed to go down to Fort Bragg." I was like, "What? I just got here." Didn't
And you
even,
just immediately went to Fort Bragg?
yeah, did
Wow,
not even spend the night. Like, I went to sign in into the unit, like, nope, Fort Bragg. Turned around,
wow,
same. Like, I mean, it was just like all like maybe half an hour. And went back to Fort Bragg. I was like, man, that's a bad experience. But
wow.
Fort Bragg is no joke either. You know,
Yeah,
they're also all about rucking and running, and yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, I almost did one big mistake. So I went to reception at Fort Bragg, and they're like, "Who wants to go airborne?"
Ooh, wait. Did you sign up? Oh,
No, that was close. That would have been a big mistake, but yeah.
yeah,
No, but that was my first assignment. Yeah.
yeah. And how was, I guess, how did you feel about that transition to your first duty station, like the way of life initially
Mm.
compared to the experiences, I think basic training drastically different, AIT drastically different, and now you're at your first duty station. How was that like?
Yeah, I think the first duty station is like the first real army experience, where like, when you're in training, it's a very different experience, So 2 months basic training, 10 months AIT, and you're in just training mode, So you get treated differently, obviously. But
Mhm.
as soon as you get to first duty station, you get treated like maybe not like an adult, because I
Yeah,
feel like still you're micromanaged and babysat a little bit. But
right.
it felt good, I was like, oh, like I have a little bit more freedoms. I can do what I want without asking permission.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, so that was kind of cool, But also, I met my I guess the biggest influence on me during that time was my squad leader.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, which the army does very well is your supervisor kind of greets you and meets you and welcomes you
Mhm.
into the unit. And so that was my first big experience because I hadn't had that obviously during training.
Yeah.
But it was like, you get welcomed, you're a part of the team. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I feel home. I'm part of the team. Like it feels good.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so that was kind of my experience. What about you?
Yeah, I would say, like mentioned, that one sergeant, and once we start talking, I guess about, you know, the leaders that we experienced, but he would turn out to be my squad leader, and I
Mm,
think my first duty station, the leaders that I had in that experience, um, were really good. Like,
mm,
I think they were the most influential that I had. I guess being a young soldier first coming to a duty station and being, having really leaders that were just kind, you know, just everything about them. Just when I think about my most influential leaders that I've had,
mm,
I mean, two come to mind. I mean, three or four between, you know, two staff sergeants I had at the time, a sergeant I had at the time. There were just so many at that point, but it just seemed like a really good crew of people, and the leaders that and the leadership they tried to instill and develop at
mm,
that time, those things have stuck with me for a very long time, and things that I try to, as I evolved, and we'll talk about that some more, that I really took with me. It really made a lot of sense. And then at first, it probably was like, because I remember the one leader said I used to question things all the time.
yeah.
Why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. And he actually took the time, and they would explain it instead of saying, because I said so,
Yeah.
because of course that could easily happen. What you're asking question for? Do what I said, move out. You have no clue as to why you're doing it, because it has to get done because I said so.
Yeah.
But I did have the benefit of having someone to say, here's why. You still got to go out and execute, but at least you know why you're doing this.
Yeah, I think your first duty station is kind of unique in that, like, now you finally have a leader over a longer period of time, as
Yeah,
opposed to having a drill sergeant for 2 months,
yeah,
or like one or two drill sergeants for a couple of months during AIT. And now you have somebody who's really invested in you, you know? I mean, like, it's like basic training drill sergeants are like, we're just trying to get these soldiers trained up and ready to go, and like they're God. But like duty station, your squad leader, your team leader, your platoon sergeant, they all like have a very big interest in you being successful, and so they take the time to actually train you and mentor you, which is good because now you're part of the team, and the team
yeah,
may go to war one of these days. We want to make sure that everybody's proficient and ready to go.
yeah. And that's a good point
Yeah,
because that go to work can happen day two of you arriving.
yeah,
Within a week of you arriving, a month of you
mhm,
arriving. So building, what you said, investing in that soldier, making sure they're prepared, ready, all of that stuff. I mean, it has to start, off the bat. Like there's actually no time to waste at
right.
all. Just for just things going on in the world, you never know, and that's why you're always combat ready.
Right. And that's why the army kind of instills in you, you have to, as a leader, you have to train and mentor, your soldiers and your other leaders, because I mean, that's the name, we all have to be ready to go to war, And I
Yeah,
think that's something that also has stuck with me, even to today, where it's like, I need to make sure everybody knows their job. I need to make sure everybody, is proficient and they can stand alone. They don't need me around. Um,
yes,
Not to say that we're going to go to war, obviously,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
this job. But at least that's something that stuck with me, and it's paid off tremendously because team's ready. They know how to do the job. They don't need me around. Like I've seen other teams where the leader leaves. Whether it's vacation or hospital or whatever, and then it seems like all the work stops because all the information and knowledge was at the leader level, and the rest of the team had no clue what's going on. So basically, they're not functioning anymore.
yeah,
But like the army teaches you, make sure your team knows what's
yep,
going on, be proficient in their job, but you're training them up to take your position, always in the army, and you share information. So that way, we're always designing, platoons and squads to take over without our presence.
yes, absolutely,
And I
absolutely,
think even in the civilian world, I think that's extremely helpful because like I am comfortable to go away, not have to worry about anybody calling me on PTO because the team has it under control.
yep,
They know what they're doing. They have all the information because I shared it with them,
yep,
and give them some background information as far as what's going on that may happen, and then the team just runs smoothly. And that's amazing. When you're able to do that.
yeah, yeah. Same here. I agree. And I think we're going to pause right here because I think we're running at that point where I think we can go ahead and catch this up next time. But I would like people to share, those leadership experiences and basic training, any leadership experiences you want to share from AIT. And then just how was that first transition for you to your first duty station? So feel free to share that with us. Definitely you can see my finger. Yeah, like and subscribe. What you got there, T?
No, but also, even if you're not in the military, I'm sure, the civilian must have had that experience where they had that first boss, maybe the first job,
Yeah,
whatever, that had that boss that took care of them and looked out for them. I'd like to hear about some of those experiences as well, because obviously, for me, that experience of civilian job came very, very late in my life.
yes, for sure.
So yeah,
Same
I would love
here.
to hear the younger men and women out there what their experience was with that first, job and that first good boss.
Yeah, yeah, that would definitely be worth checking out. And based on some of the comments, one thing we will do is dive into some of those comments at some
Mm.
point and talk them through. So definitely leave them on there because we will pick up on a couple of those. So we definitely appreciate it. We appreciate you for tuning in, and we will catch you next time.